Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is stage 5 of the Giro d'Italia 2024. Today's race brought to you by Bicycle, the largest global marketplace for pre-owned bikes with over 20,000 pre-owned and refurbished bikes available. Bicycle connects the buyers and sellers to make the process of buying and selling safe, easy, and convenient. Now let's get in today's Giro d'Italia stage, because at 180 kilometers, just there under, we're talking about 115 miles in length, it's a stage for the sprinter. We got 3 sprinter stages all back to back after yesterday's stage 4, followed by stage 3, all came down the field sprints. We saw Johnny Milan was on fantastic form in yesterday's stage 4 to not only win the stage, but to get himself in the sprint leader's jersey. Now, when we're looking at some of the other sprinters, I want to cover one Caleb Ewan, because we saw interviews after yesterday's stage where Caleb Ewan was complaining that his team is just not there. He doesn't quite have the support. He's coming into the finish of these stages solo and on his own. If you watch the coverage from Max, I'll show you where Caleb Ewan was at the back of yesterday's stage 4 coming in to finish off that super fast descent, and it did, to me, look like he just didn't quite put in 100% effort. But when you're doing 60, 70, 80 kilometers an hour, he might have thought, I just can't make it from where he was. But if I show you the video, Tim Miller was actually behind Caleb Ewan and made his way out to the left, where Caleb Ewan went over to the right and then decided to sit up. Now, if I take you back after Eddie Dunbar dropped out of the Giro d'Italia, Brent Copeland, their GM there for Jaco Lula, said, well, they're going to get behind Caleb Ewan, and they got the right riders here to do it. But honestly, Brent Copeland, I haven't seen Caleb Ewan up there with a whole lot of help from Jaco Lula, so everything the Aussie rider's saying, I got to agree with. And when we're talking about Jaco Lula, after Eddie Dunbar dropped out, or while Eddie Dunbar was in the race, I think when we're talking about Caleb Ewan, he is the guy you have to focus everything around, because he is the proven winner. Okay, he's been a little bit off the mark though the last couple of years, but he's had some bad crashes, he's had some near misses, and he's had some victory with bike throws given to other riders that Caleb Ewan clearly had won when we're talking about some of the semi-classics up in Belgium. So the Aussie rider, he would have had more wins on his season after the last 2 years if it wasn't for accidents, and then of course the jury going against the Aussie rider a couple times throughout his career. Because I can remember one that he should have actually been tied with Tim Miller, possibly even given the stage. But if you're going to split hairs, that race, I don't know how you could say Tim Miller won it. Now, when we get into the racing, I want to cover one other thing before we start the race, though, because when we start looking at Milano, this is a rider that came over with UAE team members that I said he shouldn't have been on the team. If I take you into stage 3's field sprint, after they went up over the last 1.5 kilometer climb where Tadej Pogacar followed the tacks and then left Milano back there. So if you're not going to lead out your sprinter, why bring him? Milano sit here with all by himself with no help. And if we look at yesterday's stage 4, afterwards the interview from Tadej Pogacar, he says, well, he had a mechanical with 13.5 kilometers to go and he has no help getting back on. So if you're not going to give him any help with any guys, why bring him into the race? Same with Caleb Ewan. They're all having problems, right? We look over at Johnny Milan. He won yesterday, and he said he came over to the Liddell Trek just to get himself a train, and that's why he was so successful on yesterday's stage. Simone Consoni did a fabulous job of putting him in the right position, and then, of course, Johnny Milan has exceptional legs. But every sprinter has a different tale to talk about. And if we go into Fabio Jakobsen's tale, well, he hasn't been anywhere near the sprints. And when we start today's 5th stage, this is the 3rd stage in a row for Fabio Jakobsen to be able to get himself a sprint stage, but he's got to get over the first mountains in this stage 5 if he wants a shot at going into the finish and being able to win the race. Now, when we look at the course and dissect it, the beginning of the course is really hilly. They got one climb over 10 kilometers long, but not crazy difficult, about 4.5% when they leave the coastal roads that the sprinters have to get over. But this isn't normally a stage that you would try to blow the peloton up when I'm looking at it the night before, because it's too far from the top of the first climb, about 105, 110 kilometers from the top of the first climb, the KOM, all the way down to the descent, and then 75 kilometers thereabouts going all the way into the last climb that's 3 kilometers long at 4.5%, but it's going to summit with 20 kilometers to go. So that distance between the first KOM and then the second KOM of today's stage 5 here at the Giro, it's just too long for one team to be able to ride the front. So when I'm sitting in the riders meeting, I'm thinking, be careful when you start to climb. Stay at the front if you're a sprinter. Keep my guys with you if you're getting dropped, especially if you're Caleb Ewan or if you're Tim Miller. Keep a team around you guys and then get you back on over the climb, because there's no way, if multiple sprinters are dropped with multiple teams back there and teammates for those sprinters, that a team in front of sprinters is going to hold off the team behind. It's too much work. It's too complicated to do. But when the racing comes on, we start seeing attacks right away. 4 riders go up the road. Now pay attention to the peloton as the action starts up hot and heavy from kilometer 0. Once we start getting up in the climb here, Albacine DeKoonig's right on the front. That's Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson's on the front throwing down. He's got the peloton not strung out because he's not a real climber. He's doing what he can. They're trying to do the Sagan-Bora-Hansgrohe tactics way back from 2020 in the Tour de France, where Peter Sagan just lit everybody up. But it was different kind of stages because it was never flat. It was twisty, lumpy, and bumpy, and it was certainly a day for the breakaway specialists. But Bora-Hansgrohe just controlled the whole peloton the whole time because of the way the course was set up. It wasn't completely flat. When you're in France, you have different road conditions than you do on this stage right now of the Giro d'Italia. Well, Jimmy Johnson, he's got orders from the team. I'm sure he's not a knucklehead, but the director sportif in the car absolutely is a knucklehead to be riding the front. We start seeing the first casualties coming out the back of the peloton. That's Fabio Jakobsen right there from DSM, and he has 2 teammates with him, one of them being Limrace. As those 3 riders are trying to stay somewhat near the back of the peloton, they're still losing time. We've already seen that happen on earlier sprint stages here at the Giro, so we know he's most likely going to get back on, but he's dropping time right now to the front group being led by Albacine DeKoonig, who's bringing back the 4 breakaway riders that went off early. With Albacine DeKoonig on the front still, we're coming up to a few kilometers to go. Now we're going to see the next casualties come out the back as we see Tim Miller from Soudal Quickstep come out quickly. But he's got 4 teammates around him, and one's called Julian Alaphilippe, the double road world champion. So you know Tim Miller is going to get back on, and he's got some company from Movistar, because that's Gaviria right there, the Colombian rider that rides for Movistar. So if they get over the top, you know Movistar will drop back, Soudal Quickstep's going to be there, and DSM most likely will drop more guys back if Fabio Jakobsen can get himself up to that Soudal Quickstep train. Well, we go up to the front of the peloton as we start cresting the top of the first KOM. And we'll see that the peloton's right behind the front group of 4 there. As they drop down the descent, the peloton led by Albacine DeKoonig will wrap up the 4 breakaway riders. And then, of course, they're going to sit up, because they sit up. And once they do, Soudal Quicksteps, Tim Miller there, Caleb Ewan's back on, and Gaviria's back on. So there's no reason for the peloton to be going fast, and everything's going curb to curb. We'll see DSM's Fabio Jakobsen will make it back on. Now all of the sprinters are back intact. But if you're Albacine DeKoonig, you just wasted a ton of energy right here early into stage 1. And remember, if you're sprinters, usually you want the stage to be a little calmer and stuff. I understand Caden Groves is a bit of one of the better climbers in the pure sprinters, but when we're talking about a climb like today that's summiting with 110 kilometers to go and then so much flat section, it's asking too much for Albacine DeKoonig. What you would really have to expect if you're in the riders meeting when you're the Albacine DeKoonig director sportif, you're going to say, we're going to split it, and then we're going to hope some more teams come to the front, like Lidl Trek. Maybe they'll come to the front. Maybe Visma Lease Bike will come to the front too. But without those 2 teams wanting to ride 70, 80 kilometers or 100K all the way to the finish of today's race, they're just not interested. So as we see the groups all back together, everything's compact, and we're riding into the first sprint category line here. Once things start picking up at the front, Albacine DeKoonig's interested, and then bam, we see the crash from Christophe Laporte. He goes down hard, but the cameras go back up to the front of the group because they're coming up to the sprint line. We'll see Caden Grove gets maximum points here, and then the cameras go back and explain what happened to Christophe Laporte. Looks like he was passing the Albacine DeKoonig rider that was dropping fast that did the lead out for Caden Groves. While he's dropping back fast, I wonder if Christophe Laporte, while he's looking over right at the Albacine DeKoonig rider, was a little upset that he's dropping back so fast. Either way, Christophe Laporte relaxed a little bit on the bike. Then he hits the manhole cover there that I'm sure must have had a big bump because you see his butt come off the saddle. Once it does, it throws his weight off. He goes over to the left of the bike and then onto the frame and then crashes hard here on stage 5 of the Giro d'Italia. He'll get up, he'll get back on his bike. But guys, it's going to take him 25 kilometers of chasing back there before Christophe Laporte can get onto the front. So Visma Lease Bike's lead out man here for Coy is going to be hurting. Whether or not if he can do a good lead out or not, I can't guess at this point in time because that was a hard crash. And when you look at the side of his body all scratched up, you know Christophe Laporte's going to be hurting when he goes to bed tonight. Now we get back up in the peloton and get some action because after that sprint line point competition, we see 4 guys attacking going up the front of the road. Benjamin Tomas Kofidis. He's in the aerodynamic position, trying to go as fast as he can to get time on the peloton there, hoping that somehow they'll hold up and play some tactical games. We start looking at the next rider, Enzo Paolini for FDJ. He's looking fast. Michael Valgren is in this move from EF Education. And then we see Andre Pietro there from Pulte. These 4 riders are going up the road. Every time when you look at the back of the group, Pietro Bone, he doesn't look like he's throwing a ton of energy into it, but the first riders in front of him, these guys are throwing everything. They're staying super aerodynamic and tech the whole time, and they're going full gas. We go back to the peloton. We see Albacin de Koenig is on the front, and then they're going to start getting some help from Lidl Trek. Now we come into about 36 kilometers to go. This is a dangerous section. As we see the island there in the center of the road, there's a big crash here, and it's Israel Premier Tech that takes the hardest hit here. Riley, the Canadian rider for Israel Premier Tech, looks like he hit his face and it's bleeding all over. Now, sometimes when you're watching from the Chesterfield, I am not downplaying this accident right here, but the head always gives a lot of blood because there's a lot going on in the brain up there, I guess. Mine, maybe not so much, but I'm sure most people, there's a lot of energy going up there, so there's a lot of blood. That's why anytime you scratch your face, you see a ton of blood. But right now, Israel Premier Tech, Riley, he looks like he's hurting. He'll get on his bike. He will finish today, stage 5 of the Giro d'Italia. But Israel Premier Tech's going to have some more bad luck because just as we start seeing some of the crash riders coming on the back of the peloton, we got about 26 kilometers to go, and then there's another crash in the middle of the peloton. If I point out what probably happened, if you look up in the center of the peloton in the middle of the field there, I can't tell who it is because the picture is definitely too dark. Looks like it's about a red jersey there, but he's moving from the center over to the left, overlaps wheels, and then we'll see riders going down all over the place. And Israel Premier Tech lose not just 1, but 2 riders going down in this crash, and Michael Woods is one of them, one of their big-time favorites to win a stage here at the Giro d'Italia. Both those riders will get up. Both those riders will finish today, stage 5. But we look at the other Visma Lease bike rider. That's Attila Valters that's down in this crash. That means Laporte crashed earlier, like I said. Now Attila Valters has crashed. That means when we're talking about Olaf Koy, he's one of the big-time sprint favorites here to win a stage of the Giro. He's down 2 guys because certainly Attila Valters would be there to do some late and early work here on stage 5 of the Giro. And Laporte, you know, is going to do the latest work with the last lead-out man for Olaf Koy, but he's all damaged up. He did find his way back in the peloton, like I said, but when we go up to the front of the peloton, they're not slowing down at all. They're going full gas because the break is still at about a minute and 15 seconds to the peloton there. Once we get on the last and final KOM with about 25 kilometers to go, 24 kilometers to go, we see that Lidl Trek is on the front right now. They've had some help throughout the whole stage. Quickstep was on the front. Albacin de Koenig was on the front. But now going up this final climb, Lidl Trek's controlling the peloton. And they got Albacin de Koenig always in and around the position here at the front of the peloton. With that in mind, we see the front break up there, and we see him go over the top of the KOM. And that's Michael Valgren that'll get maximum KOM points as they're holding about a 52-second lead on the peloton. Once the peloton comes over, it's time to stop playing games and get straight to work. The peloton's going full gas. The riders up front, at least 3 of them are throwing down massively as Pietro Bone up there from Pulte Cometa, he's starting to sit on right after the top of the KOM. Sat on a little bit, if you ask me, before the KOM since the time the break formed, but certainly after we get over the KOM, Pietro Bone stops taking pulls up at the front, so we know there's a little bit possibility of hesitation in the front of the group. We go back to the peloton with 17 kilometers to go and about 55-second gap to the 4 leaders up front. This is when Lidl Trek start having it out with Quickstep. We'll see Johnny Milan there, winner of yesterday's stage 4. He's yelling over there to the side. That's Bert van Leerburg. And we see his teammate just in front of him, Ed Toons there. He's yelling over to the right too as they're trying to get Quickstep back on the front. They're arguing like crazy and the time gap's staying at about 55 seconds. And then we start looking at the front of the group there with about 13 kilometers to go. Albacin de Koenig's Quinten Hermans, he pulls off hard right and he gets on the radio. Right now he's saying, I'm done, guys. My legs are cooked. I got nothing left. So that's going to leave 2 Trek riders on the front. We see Baggioli was up there and we see Dan Uhl was up there. And then just after the pull off there of the Albacin de Koenig rider, they get some help from Quickstep. Quickstep get on the front and Jayco get on the front with Trek. And then we start seeing, as the Jayco Lula riders looking for some help, looking back there, Dan Uhl. Dan Uhl's like, I can't do it. I don't have anything left. They've been on the front. They've been going full gas. Guys, the front of the break is motoring up there. Those guys in the front, Palinzo, he is doing full gas. Benjamin Tomas, every time he takes a pull, he's on the pedals with maximum effort. And then when we look at Valgren from EF Education, same scenario. He is not missing a turn. He's coming through fast. But like I said, they still got some chemistry problems because Pietro Bone up there isn't doing any pulls. Now, when we go back to the peloton, after we see that we got Viz Melissa bike jumping on the front, guys, we got like 4 teams back there pulling, but none of them are Lidl Trek. With about 10 kilometers to go, Lidl Trek pulled their guys from the front. I know 2 of them blew up, but they still got 5 guys in the front group. We're talking Johnny Milan, the winner, Simone Consoni, who led him out, Ed Toons is there, Stuyvens is there, and don't forget, they got their little climber, Juan Pedro Lopez. I know he's racing for general classification, but do you want to go for general classification that you got no chance of winning, or do you want to go for a stage win with Johnny Milan? Well, Lidl Trek won't put their guys on the front, and we start seeing the front of the peloton there. Pseudo Quickstep start blowing right away. Intermarché will blow up. Viz Melissa bikes doing everything they can up there, and Jaco Lula are on the front too, but they're just not gaining on the front breakaway. There are 4 guys. Now we come into 4 kilometers to go. It's red alert signs if you're sitting on the Chesterfield, because anytime you see a GC team come to the front when the gap is still at about 40 seconds, you know things are going to slow down, and that's Team Ineos that's at the front right now, trying to keep their GC guy, Garrett Thomas, in good position and safe and out of troubles. They're not trying to bring back the breakaway guys, they're just trying to stay safe and get under 3 kilometers to go. Now it'll be about 2.5 kilometers to go when you see Albacine start coming back up to the front, and Lidl Trek's in around the picture, but the gap up to the 4 leaders, you know they're going to win today. Stage 5 as long as they don't mess around. And again, remember, Pietro Bone has been sitting on the whole time coming off the last KOM mountain, so I'm still sitting there like it's not over. If he sits on, then this thing is all coming back together. Now we go under 1.1 kilometer to go. We look at the front. That's Paulinzo up there from FDJ. He's pulling through, and he's got Valgren sitting second. Third is Benjamin Tomas. As we see Enzo Polina go under the 1K banner, we see Valgren start to go next to the right side of him. But look at the gap open up from Benjamin Tomas. It's time for the second rider to start playing games. I'm getting all excited again because I'm like, man, if they really start playing games, this whole thing's coming back together. It's going to be a nail-biter into the finish of Stage 5 of the Giro d'Italia. As we see Benjamin Tomas open up the gap, Valgren takes the front just under 1 kilometer to go. He goes into about 900 meters. As he starts looking back, check out the tag here from the Cometa riders. He's throwing up the right side. We look at Valgren. He's looking left over his shoulder. Then he's looking right over his shoulders. We're coming in the first left turn here under the final 1K. Pietro Bone comes around the outside. He gets a gap coming through this corner. And Valgren's like, I'm not going to pull him back. He keeps looking under his shoulder. He keeps opening up the gap up there to the Cometa rider. As we see the gaps getting bigger and bigger, Valgren pulls over. Then we see with about 700 meters to go, that is Enzo Polini there from FDJ that does a big acceleration. But Benjamin Tomas calls the bluff here on Valgren again and opens up the gap, and Valgren has to slip into second place as Enzo Polini is going 100%. Now we come out of a little bit of the chicane. It's about 250 meters to go. We see Pietro Bone still has a gap up there, but not much. Now we see at 250 meters to go, Valgren's going to start his acceleration for EF Education. Once he does, Benjamin Tomas goes directly with them. They move over to the right side of the road. They're gaining quickly on the Cometa rider in front. That's trying to win Stage 5, but his legs are starting to blow now. He jumped too early. As we come into 100 meters to go, it looks like Valgren's on the back wheel there of Pietro Bone, but let's back it up and look at the aerial shot at about 110, 120, because this is right where Benjamin Tomas from Cofidis starts his sprint. He starts his sprint. We go up to about 50 meters to go. They're 3 wide across the road. Once we get into 30 meters to go, we'll see Benjamin Tomas from Cofidis has got the lead. He'll sit up with about 5 meters to go and celebrate the massive first victory of the 2024 season for the World Tour races here for Cofidis at the Giro d'Italia Stage 5. Congratulations, Benjamin Tomas from Cofidis. As he comes across the line, he falls down on the ground, and his teammates come pick him up. As he's exhausted after giving hugs, he's hanging back down, bent over in half on his body, trying to get some oxygen after celebrating with all his teammates. And then look at Simone Consoni from Lidl Trek come over here and congratulate Benjamin Tomas. They used to be teammates until Simone Consoni came over here to the train from Lidl Trek and started working for Johnny Milan, but he still remembers his old teammates. That was a nice moment right there. We go back and look at second on the stage. Well, of course, that was Michael Valgren that got second. Third on the stage, the Cometa rider, Pietro Bone. He's third and fourth on the stage. FDJ, Enzo Polina will get fourth. Now, what happened in the peloton? Well, we didn't get to see a whole lot under 2 kilometers to go. As they come into the last finish, though, we're going to see that it's Johnny Milan that won the sprint from Lidl Trek. Now, when it was all said and done, afterwards, the cameras focused in on Caden Groves, and Caden Groves is arguing with his teammates about saying, hey, you guys didn't get me in the right place after the bridge. Well, the right place didn't really matter because you weren't racing for the stage win, but what he's really talking about is I'm sure he's racing for the sprint point competition too. So even though they don't have 1 through 4th available on today's stage, I'm sure Caden Groves would have still liked 5th place on the stage. So that's why we see them arguing. But when you break it all down, there's a bunch of knuckleheads in today's stage. I mean, Liddell Trek, I like the ideal of where you're forcing the other teams to work. But once you got under 10 kilometers to go, why did you pull your guys off on the front? Keep Stuyvesant up there working with those guys. You could easily tell there's only 2 guys, 3 guys pulling at a time, but every time you get fresh legs coming to the front, do one big pull. It hurts the guys that are up there and they blow up. Liddell Trek, okay, it's not all your fault. I'm blaming most of this on Albacine de Koenig, but remember, DSM didn't pull. They had Fabio Jakobsen here. Jaco pulled a little bit, but they're coming up there fresh and they're hurting the legs, like I said. Albacine de Koenig did do their work. Soudal Quickstep could have spent some more time on the front, but they did most of the stage, so it's not really their fault. If you want to win, Johnny Milan, don't pull your guys off with 10 kilometers to go when you still got 5 guys that haven't touched the front. I know you guys brought Juan Pedro Lopez, but maybe should have left him at home, just like UAE team members should have left Milano at home. Juan Pedro Lopez maybe should have been left at home because Johnny Milan's looking like he is the hot hand for the favorite sprinters here at the Giro d'Italia, and certainly looks like he can pull himself a 2nd, if not a 3rd victory here at the Giro d'Italia if Liddell Trek could just get him into the finish in one piece. Either way, it's an exciting finish on the stage today. Hopefully all the riders that caught up in the crashes, especially Viz Melissa Bikes and Michael Woods Israel Premier Tech, along with his teammates, hopefully they have healed after tonight's race and can get themselves back into form here quickly in the following weeks here at the Giro d'Italia. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. I'll see you on the next edition real soon.